Ààfin, Awon, Eniyan, the People's Palace, is a home for renegades, a group of 150 young people who are breaking free from the expected traditional way of life, in a space defined only by immersion in blue. The project forms a refuge, much like the Yoruba palaces of the past, allowing these renegades to go about their daily lives as freely as they collectively would, for resting, playing, working and eating together. The proposal is situated in my mother's home, Ibadan, an early Yoruba city. The building overshadows an area of 10,000 square metres above the rough, muddy Kudeti River, filling the largest void in the densely packed centre of the city. It is 75 metres wide and 145 metres long, and one can enter in on all sides into the periphery. Traditionally, the Ààfin, meaning palace, was a place of concerted ceremony, debate, and a solace for the afflicted. Home to the Oba, meaning king, who was at the top of the social hierarchy, the Ààfin also had a hierarchy, and the open spaces and rooms were organised according to it. Ààfin Awon Eniyan is characterised by inward-looking agbala, meaning courtyards, the collective cradle of Yoruba architecture, a space for ritual, leisure, and occupational activities to occur simultaneously. The rectilinear spaces are intersected by odede, meaning corridor, and surrounded by small yara, meaning rooms. Each enclosure is defined by the Yoruba terms as they are untranslatable. However, the yara are pushed to the extremities, and the agbala are no longer governed by hierarchy, but through the collective empowerment of communities like the Alte. The Alte are different from the constrained traditional culture, through understanding the political edge that fashion, music, and the arts can play in its ability to bring people together. The perception of the community is unstable, constantly shifting, and this characteristic is reflected in the building through the use of structural colour, and more specifically, the colour blue. Blue is the colour of distance, universal and infinite, the colour of the sky and the sea, which when reached cannot be touched and disappears when close. Blue surrounds us constantly, shifting into different shades and hues. In Yoruba, there is no word for blue. Like many languages, blue was one of the last to be described with words. Blue was unbound by language, thus possessing its own kind of freedom, free from preconceptions and ideologies. The project uses blue as an aura in the form of structural colour. Like the wings of a morpho butterfly, the phenomenon can be achieved using mica powder and a translucent medium paint. From one perspective, the colour appears to be white, but with movement, it gradates into an intense blue. An angle close to 53 degrees and darker colours conceive the most luminous effect. The proportion of the elements and the strength of the blue define the atmosphere. On the outside, the blue is elusive, leaving the largest handmade clay elements rough to match the tone and terrain of the city. And small, intimate spaces back a thin layer of elements which provide screening and protection from the outside. The vast stepping ground floor space is one of plurality and non-specificity. This complex of intersections are the odede. Forming pockets, they hold potential for special moments of interaction between those living in and around the building. The thick, solid mud walls of the Ààfin are reinstated with an abstract array of reinforced clay elements, which slot and stack together. Into the periphery, the blue begins to intensify, bringing an openness and energy to the internal spaces. The colours are animated further, with artificial lighting constructing areas of intense saturation and glow. Here, the yara or rooms are enclosed, yet never quite closed off to the rest of the building, leaving gaps for others to both see and enter in. However, the agbala ground plane is lowered and the spacing between the elements are angled to reduce visibility. On the first floor, the blue is subtle, yet more visible than the outside, each yara containing rooms one could inhabit. Some may live here for the rest of their lives, whilst others may move on to pursue a life they fostered within these spaces. And at the centre, for the marginalised, is a collective space, where the vivid astringent colour and treasured nature of the building is revealed. Inhabiting the blue, its shifting shades permeate through the building, where everyday acts are always reframed by oscillation of colour, only opening at the Agbala for an uninterrupted view of the sky. For me, the project was a pathway to understand a new form of inhabitation through the lens of Yoruba architecture, a spatial definition that is not commonly used but became essential to the project. However, it does not romanticize the traditional Ààfin, as the building retranslates a sequence of spaces for commoning, to both elevate and dignify, whilst adopting the colour blue to evoke a sense of freedom. A sense of freedom within Ààfin Awon Eniyan, an amalgamation of elements, with an oscillating presence on the site, sheltering the main Agbala with the elements small and delicate. A deep sapphire blue flickers, where those who could not find their place are free in a space that dissipates into blue.